Hi there, and welcome to our very first Kids Corner video. My name is Nan, and I'm the lay speaker here at Cudahy United Methodist Church and the director of Safe Haven. We're going to be taking a look at some of the folks that are in the book, Holy Troublemakers and Unconventional Saints. And the first one is Alice Paul. I'm going to show you Alice's picture as the artist has drawn her. There's Alice. And let's hear a little about her. In 1885, when Alice Paul was born, women in the U.S. did not have the right to vote. Fortunately, Alice's family believed that both men and women deserved to vote. Alice's parents were Quakers. That is a religion. And Alice is related to William Penn, a Quaker who established the colony of Pennsylvania as a refuge for Quakers and other religious minorities who often faced harsh discrimination elsewhere. Oh my. It didn't want to work. Well, to get back to Alice. Alice's family then had a history of caring about the rights of those in the minority. Alice's parents embraced gender equality and access to education for both boys and girls. Alice's mother was a suffragette, which means she was one of the many women who fought for the right to vote. Alice watched her mother and her mother's friends work tirelessly to change the law of the land so that women could also have an official say in what happened in their country, towns, and communities. She helped make signs and chanted popular slogans like, "Vote for women," "No vote, no tax," "Sisters, unite and fight." Alice studied hard in school. She knew she'd need to be able to write, speak, and organize effectively in order to continue her mother's and other suffragettes' work. She went to a Quaker college and studied biology, graduating in 1905, and then she earned her first graduate degree in 1907 from what is now Columbia University. Next, she earned a PhD in social work from the University of Pennsylvania. Mind you, all of this was unheard of for a woman to do in the early 1900s. After completing her official studies, Alice sailed to England to meet with women who were also working for the right to vote. While there, Alice met another American suffragette, Lucy Burns. Together, Alice and Lucy learned more effective demonstration and organizing strategies from their English friends. They went on to found the National Woman's Party in the U.S. with the goal of getting Congress to pass a constitutional amendment granting women the right to vote. Previous suffragette efforts had been more focused on state-by-state changes, but Alice wanted to change the law for the whole country at the same time. Many of the women who had started the movement for the right to vote had felt the need to be polite. They wanted to still be seen as ladies. Alice started to plan more assertive demonstrations. She realized that being polite was not getting results. That kind of gentler conversation might have been where the suffragette movement had needed to start. But Alice had learned in England that she needed to make some noise. Her new strategy was to hold sustained, dramatic, nonviolent protests to get attention and press coverage. The first large protest that Alice organized was in Washington, D.C. That figures. It was held on March 3rd, 1913, the day before President Woodrow Wilson was inaugurated. She faced resistance from the police and city supervisor over her planned parade route. But she persisted and got approval for the route. Over 8,000 women marched with banners and floats down Pennsylvania Avenue from the Capitol to the White House. In addition to the women marching, there were at least 500,000 people watching. Most were cheering them on, but there were also a number of people there to bother them. The parade was led by fellow suffragette Inez Mulholland, who rode at the head of the parade on a white horse dressed in flowing robes of white. Newspaper coverage called the parade one of the most impressively beautiful spectacles ever staged in this country. A few years later, in January of 1917, Alice and 1,000 women called Silent Sentinels began 18 months of picketing the White House. They stood at the gates with signs that read, "Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty?" and other such messages. The Silent Sentinels endured frequent verbal insults, and they were also physically attacked. The police, who should have protected their right to protest, did little to shield them. In fact, several women were arrested on a charge of obstructing traffic, even though they were not even in the street. Police arrested Alice on October 20th of 1917. She was sentenced to 7 months in prison, just for legally picketing. The conditions in prison were awful. Rats ran everywhere, and the women had to work all day long. Guards beat them on the orders of the prison superintendent, who wanted to break their will. But Alice's spirit could not be broken. She saw an inscription that another woman had etched into the prison wall. "Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God." Think about that. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. Wow. Alice drew strength from that reminder of a higher calling of this difficult path. In response to the brutal prison conditions, Alice organized a hunger protest. Alice's hunger strike went on for so long that prison officials were afraid that she would die, and they didn't want that negative publicity. Because believe me, Alice made sure she had publicity. They eventually force-fed Alice and threatened to send her to a hospital for people with severe mental illness. Now, those are not like the hospitals we have today, believe me. It was more like going into, probably more like going into another prison. And the care was even worse than what they were getting there. However, Alice and the other imprisoned suffragettes managed to get messages to journalists, and gradually their stories got published in the newspapers. Public support for women's suffrage increased with the news coverage, just as Alice had known that it would. Through all of this, the Silent Sentinels stood outside the White House for 24 hours a day until the 19th Amendment, granting American women the right to vote, was finally passed by Congress June 4th, 1919. It was ratified on August 18th, 1920. Finally, the generations of women who had worked for the right to vote achieved victory. An important note is that this right originally applied mostly to only white American women. It would still take many more years and many more laws to give Native American, Asian American women the right to vote, and it would take the civil rights movement of the 60s to remove many race-related voting restrictions that had effectively kept most Black Americans from voting. Alice later reflected, "When you put your hand to the plow, you can't put it down until you get to the end of the row." Alice had lived to see the end of the row she'd set her hand to. After this triumph, Alice devoted the rest of her life to the ongoing effort for women to have full equality an effort still underway today by her successors in advocacy. So you see, especially you girls, it has been a long, hard fight for us to get anywhere near the rights that men enjoyed without even working for them. Now we're talking about people who are white, unfortunately. Because as much as this country was based on allowing people that were discriminated against elsewhere to find a new home, a lot of that discrimination came with them, especially to women. So that's the story of the life of Alice Paul, a woman who worked tirelessly to help all of us today have a better life. I would say she definitely earned the title of holy troublemakers and unconventional saints. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you again very soon. Who knows what we're going to have in store then. Bye.